Thank you, Trish, for the beautiful music. I'm Jim Black. I'm your service leader today. If you could take this opportunity to make sure your cell phones are silenced. It's our custom, especially on this beautiful morning, to invite visitors or people who have not been here before, if they'd like to stand, introduce themselves, if they feel comfortable. There we go. Why don't you want to stand? It's hard to stand. I guess you have somebody on your lap. You have,
I'm David.
I'm Christy. These are our kids, Stephanie, Isis, and Osiris. We're visiting from Milwaukee.
welcome. I hope you have a nice time up here.
Hi, I'd like to reintroduce ourselves. We've not been here in a while, since before COVID, and we're here today thanks to a nudge from Bob and Merton. But yes, even after the covert, I'm Peter Conroy, by the way, my wife Rachel. Might not remember me, but everybody remembers Rachel. So yes, and it's just taken us a while. We're seasonal, so we're not here during the winter, but, we just have not gotten around to getting back in the swing of things, and so, we're starting today. So we hope to see you. We miss all of you, but, we're happy to be back.
Well, welcome back. After, what else? Oh, yeah,
I'm Barb Whitler. I've been here before. It's been a while. My parents used to have a place in Bailey Harbor, and now I do, but I go to a UU in Minocqua, Woodruff, Wisconsin.
oh, welcome.
It's great to be here.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you. Well, today's speaker is the Reverend Christy Melvin Gibbons. She's an ordained Moravian minister who is executive director of the Trickle Bee Cafe in Milwaukee. And as the Trickle Bee's mission statement says, the Trickle Bee Cafe is a pay-what-you-can community cafe that offers healthy food, food service training, and spiritual nourishment. When I first heard of the Trickle Bee Cafe, I thought, what a great idea. A place to eat healthy food and pay what you can for the food. I thought, a great idea, but it cannot possibly sustain itself. There's no way. But it's been in existence for 6 years plus. And then I found out there's more than 60 of these cafes around the United States. And their vision statement is, quote, access to healthy food helps people to better care for themselves and their neighbors, which heals and strengthens communities, which I think is a wonderful thing. And it's just an amazing idea, and I look forward to the discussion. And then after the service, we will be having a talk back, but after about 15 minutes. So please join us in the gathering room for coffee and refreshments. And after about 15 minutes, the chimes will ring, and Christy will come back and share what her experience. So, okay. Now, on the back of the order of service, there are announcements. Does anybody have any additions or expansions? Terry will bring the mic. So we hope to.
Meg Ziegelman, and I said I would come back when we had a date from the Door County Citizens Action Group in terms of a gun control event. And the meeting is going to be this Thursday, June 1, at the Peach Garden, which is one drive just south of NWTC in Sister Bay. This will be a one-time event and a standalone. So by coming and supporting and being a part of this event, you're not bound beyond that event, which is nice. It's just a short-term commitment, and there's power in numbers. And so we hope that you feel invigorated to come. And if not, if you can't make it to the planning meetings, I'm sure that there will be a need to support whatever the decision is made. It's intended to be the early part of June that there will be some kind of event. Thank you. It is at 4 o'clock. Thank you.
Good morning. I have something here that may belong to somebody who had attended the memorial service for Susan Leader here on Friday afternoon. It was found as we were cleaning up the sanctuary. And P.S., the memorial service was absolutely beautiful. We had probably 100 people in this sanctuary celebrating Susan, and all the memories that flooded in, the slideshow, the music, every component of it was just a beautiful experience.
Good morning, Bruce Nelson. I'm going to take up a little bit more time today. I actually have 3 announcements. The first one is this Wednesday, the 31st of May at 9 o'clock. We'll meet at the Brew House Coffee in Ellison Bay for our twice annual cleanup of the highway, the section of the highway we have, the Adopt a Highway. So we have a sign-up sheet on the bulletin board, or come and see me, and we'll give you the details. But that's this Wednesday at 9 o'clock. The other 2 announcements are something we've been working on for quite some time. On the water treatment system, we have our ultraviolet system is now installed. It's been started up. It's been inspected and approved by the DNR. We've taken some water samples and they've tested fine. So we have safe drinking water after years of fighting the battle and a year of some pretty intense efforts to select what kind of system and get it installed and operating. So we're very happy to be able to report that. And the third one is our solar panel system has been up and operating for about a month now. And the numbers are preliminary, but it looks like for the month of April, we generated about 35% of the energy that we consumed. And that will go up now in the summer months. And hopefully by June or certainly by July, we'll be selling power back to the power company. And the water system, I want to thank Terry Good and Gwen for helping with that. And on the solar system, everybody here deserves a pat on the back since we all supported that effort, and it's working out well for us. Thank you.
Had two big achievements. Great, thank you.
All right, one quick announcement. I am Gwen Gray Boyce. One quick announcement about the solar panels. We will be having a solar panel celebration in the garden on June 18th, right after the service. We will probably have sun tea and sun chips and a little music and talk a little bit about the panels so people understand. We're going to have seasonally adjustable times. So just some explanation about a little bit about the science and the efficiency of the panels. So June 18th, I know it's Father's Day, but we won't take a lot of time.
Great.
Right after service.
Excellent. Okay. All right. Now it's time for a hymn. Number 16, "'Tis a Gift to Be Simple." Stand if body or spirit. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend, be ashamed, to turn, we are delighted with thy turning, we come down right. One of my favorite. The opening words today are from John Bunyan, the author of Pilgrim's Progress. You have not lived today until you have done something for someone who can never repay you. We begin the service with the chalice lighting words by Steve Stock. We light this chalice to celebrate the inherent worth and dignity of every person, to reaffirm the historic pledge of liberal religion to seek that justice which transcends mere legality and moves toward the resolution of true equality, and to share that love which is ultimately beyond even our cherished reason, the love that which unites us. Please stand in body or spirit for the universal affirmation and the doxology. We gather together to seek knowledge and wisdom, to explore freely the vast reaches of mind and spirit, to celebrate within a caring community those truths, ancient and modern, which give meaning and direction to our lives. From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of faith and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung, in every land by every tongue. Now is the time in our service to either, for those who wish, to share a joy they might have or unburden a concern. And again, Terry will bring the mic around, and recall that this service is being live streamed. So if you want to mention something about someone, make sure that you have their permission. Anyone with joys up?
Lindley's yet another update on Sally Mom. Her recalcitrant calcium is slowly decreasing. She's back in the hospital in Sturgeon Bay, but doing better. Her daughters have traded places. Karen is back in North Carolina, and Julie is up here from Illinois. But the report this morning from Julie is she is feeling much stronger. So hopefully we're on the upside.
There was a surprise that didn't make it in the order of service. That gorgeous, striking bouquet is in honor of Susan Leader from her family.
So I just want to share a joy this week as opposed to last week's. So I just came off of the Retro Tour. I drove out to Massachusetts to my 50th college reunion. On the way, I stopped at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I am just now recovering from a visit to my 20s. It was delightful. I learned a lot about rock and roll that I didn't know, and I learned a lot about my classmates that I didn't know. So anyway, that's where I'm at today.
I'm perhaps a bit out of order. I didn't get up and reintroduce myself. I haven't been here for quite a long while, but I want to share the joy that when I came in, I found that you still had my badge. And I must tell you, that brings me no small joy to know that I'm still here. The other joy I want to share is that I have been partaking of the wonderful food at Trickleby Cafe now for 5 years, I think, at least. And it is a wonderful place, and I am absolutely delighted that Christy and David and the family are here today. Nice to see them. Thanks.
Yeah.
Not only partaking of the food, but bringing food. He was growing potatoes for a year and brought us all those goodies. So thank you.
Nice. Okay, now is the time for the offertory for the financial support of the fellowship. Please be generous as you can, and a reminder that you can support us financially online. Thank you.
That's okay.
Now it's time for a moment of quiet so we can clear our minds. So we'd be open to the message from Reverend Melby Gibbons.
Good morning, family. You didn't know it, but we're related. All people are, right? So you already heard who I am, and I just want to start by saying that people often ask me how I got to be where I am today, running a restaurant where it's pay what you can, the food is healthy. Like, where did you get your love of cooking and your love of feeding people? So food and I go way back. We could probably all say that, right? It's the thing we all do. All humans can say we go way back with food. When I was in the womb, my parents bought a 50-acre cornfield in northeast Iowa, an organic farm that had been abandoned. They bought it and they burned the corn, restored the native prairie, cut down some trees, built a house. We homesteaded. And by we, I mean they, because I was a toddler. But they literally lived off the land. We had big gardens, and they're still there today. They heat their house with wood, live very simply. They have running water in the house now. We didn't when I was very young. But I have very clear memories of picking strawberries from this big strawberry patch we had. My mantra was one for the bowl, one for the mouth, one for the bowl, one for the mouth. I have very clear memories of weeding those long rows in the garden in the backyard, pulling the carrots out and thwacking it on my leg to get the dirt off, and then crunching into that really good orange vegetable with my older siblings behind me. I have clear memories of foraging for hundreds of beautiful morel mushrooms. They were everywhere. They still are in their woods. Certain hills, they're all over, and we'd pick them and bring them back and soak them in hot water to get all the little bugs out and saute those in a little pan of oil. I'm salivating. It's still to this day one of my favorite meals, eating just morel mushrooms in a pan. I have clear memories of holding the giant sunflower head in my lap once they started to bow, and felt like I was playing a video game, thumbing all those little seeds out. And the mud pies. We didn't eat them, but I made thousands of mud pies in my childhood with cousins and neighbors. We would decorate them with little sprigs from pine trees and seashells and seaweed and bark. These were elaborate mud pies. So all of that is an extension of my family's dinner table. We always ate our meals together. I think my real love for eating just comes from that. Every meal as a child, we were at the table. Sometimes we were grumpy, we still ate together. Sometimes we had something to do right afterwards, so we ate quickly, but we always ate together. And I think that's very important. And they were from scratch meals as much as possible. A lot of things from the garden. We had a food co-op we were members of. It was also the 1980s, so we had things like Spam and like really weird mix of really healthy and weird canned things. But it was all from scratch. We made meals together and ate them together and cleaned up the meal. And those family meals shaped my understanding of the importance of eating together and how that breaks barriers down. Jesus of Nazareth, whose tradition I follow, knew the power of food very well. And he would say of the massive crowds that would come to glean wisdom from his teachings, I don't want them to go away hungry. And he was always imploring his disciples, just feed them, just bring them some food. You don't have it, find it, make it, give it out. And do you know what people called him? He had a couple labels. I mean, I'm not thinking like Savior Messiah. He had two other labels. Can you think of what they were? Glutton and drunkard. He was known when he came into town. They're like, oh, here comes that guy who's always eating with people and the wrong people usually. So he liked his food and drink. I also love to eat. And I love to rescue food that is otherwise going to be wasted. And I love to make with that food beautiful, nourishing meals. And Dale has had many of those meals. It's someone else's trash, really. We rescue food before it hits the dumpster and we make it into a meal. And I love to make that for my family. That's how we eat at home. That's how we eat at the cafe. We feed our whole community that way. So gleaning is a word you've probably heard before. That's what we do with cultivated foods, things that are intentionally grown. We glean that stuff, the extras. Foraging, as I mentioned earlier, is what we do with wild foods. We go out and seek those things and bring them in. And at Trickleby, we do both. We glean from local orchards, neglected orchards in the city that no one's harvesting. We have friends that go pick up the stuff and bring it to us. We also forage for things like oyster mushrooms. We did a beef vegan stroganoff last week with foraged oyster mushrooms. It was so good. And then we also did dandelion fritters. We popped all the dandelion heads off in the yard and fried them up, and we sold out. People had never had those before, and they were like, those are amazing. So that's kind of how we operate there. But this idea of gleaning in the Torah, which is Hebrew scripture, and they have ancient laws about gleaning. I don't know if you've familiarized yourself with these, but they ask farmers to do three things. First is to leave the edges of your fields unharvested. You can harvest everything in the middle, but just around the edges where the roads and the trails are, leave the food there for people walking by to pick. Number two is not to pick up any produce that falls. Like if it falls from the tree or the plant, leave that for someone to walk through and grab if they're hungry. And the third is not to harvest any missed produce after you've already gone through with a major harvest. If you missed it, leave it, because there's probably someone coming after who's hungry. And that was a way of assuring that no one in that society went hungry, because food is a right. It is not a privilege. Food is a right. As a society, how can we make sure that we are leaving those edges unharvested? And how can we leave food that has fallen or been overlooked? How can we make sure we're doing that for people? There is enough food for everyone. There's not a food shortage in the world. If you ever hear that there's a food shortage or a famine, it isn't true. The food is just not being directed to where it needs to go. Unintentional hunger should not exist. The truth of that statement is a huge part of why Trickleby Cafe does what we do. In our cafe, we offer three things. I think you shared them earlier. We offer healthy food, food service training, teaching people how to work in a kitchen, and spiritual nourishment. And we offer all of those things regardless of how much money people have to offer us. We have a tagline. It's what's printed in the bulletins there. It says, cheerful hearts, continual feast, cozy chapel. The cheerful hearts part is obvious. As soon as you enter the cafe, you see all the cheerful hearts. And the amount of hugs I engage in on a daily basis, I'm probably averaging 40, 50 hugs a day. And science says that we need 10 for optimum thriving. So I'm doing really well. And the people smile when we remember their names. Did you ever watch the show Cheers back in the 70s and 80s? Where everybody knows your name. That's totally Trickleby. And we're always glad they came. I'm at a point even where I answer the phone and I can hear who it is. I don't know. They don't say who it is. I know the voice and I know what they're going to order and I write it down before they say it. Like Charles always gets one of everything with a mint tea, and he's coming in 10 minutes. Mr. Robert always gets one of everything with a coffee with oat milk and agave, and he comes in 15 minutes every time. If they deviate, we're like, what? So that's the regularity of a lot of our customers. There is so much joy at Trickleby Cafe. Some people say that it soaks into the walls. You can feel it as soon as you come in. And for 2 years in a row, last year and this year, we were honored to be voted as the Community Cafe of the Year in that group of 50, 60 cafes all over the US, twice in a row. Totally surprised the second one. The first one, I was like, that's cool. I'm like, whoa, people really love what we do. And I think they see it and are inspired by our daily activity. And if you haven't looked up the One World Everybody Eats Network, there's a website and there's a map that shows where all of those cafes are. So if you're ever traveling and you can go through and eat at one, there's a similar feel to all of our cafes, even though they're different contexts, different names, different menus. There's a spirit that's very similar, joyful, communal, and loving and welcoming. Sorry. The cheerful hearts in our cafe are very abundant, and one particular cheerful heart I'll share with you. Her name is Greta. She's about this tall. She's in her early 80s. She dyes her hair bright red and wears very colorful fingernail polish. She's spunky. And she's severely arthritic, so her hands are starting to be a little bit stuck, I guess, and her knuckles are swollen, and she uses a cane. But she comes in a few times a year. She's always got these cute hats on, too, and a little pep in her step. But she knits for us these cloth dish rags that we use for sanitizing our counters and our tables. So 3 times a year, she brings me a whole bag full. She says, oh, I just make those while I'm watching my TV shows. But that is such a gift to us. She's such a blessing. And she doesn't even necessarily come in and eat, but that's her way of giving back and supporting our good work. We also host a small group of adult volunteers from Goodwill Industries. Every Tuesday morning, they've been coming. Talk about cheerful hearts. These are adults that live with mental health challenges and physical disabilities. And they come in that door and they are smiling and they are eager. If I don't have it all set up, they're like, what are we doing? Where is it? And they're like, oh, okay. So I get everything out and they start working. They wrap our cutlery, our silverware in cloth napkins. They fill and iron tea bags for us. They stamp our logo on our to-go bags. And they make handwritten thank you notes that we send to our donors with little drawings on them. They're very touching. So they really are a delight to see because they just shine in their service. They love coming. It's a huge part of their week. And they like being at Tricklebee because other places they volunteer, they have to stand the whole time and they're doing something monotonous, hanging up clothes or whatever. But at Tricklebee, it feels like maybe there's even a little more dignity in their work. The continual feast part of our tagline is also obvious to anyone who comes through or who lives near the cafe because all day long when we're open, people are going in and out all day. And we feed everyone who comes, no matter how much money you have in your pocket. There was a gentleman who came yesterday and he said, I got a quarter. Will that do it? I said, yeah, drop it in the bucket. And we fed him. It's fine. And other people might come and drop in a $50 bill for themselves, and that's fine. It kind of balances out. So there are 3 boys that come in from our neighborhood, and we love them, but they also have some habits that are a little difficult to enjoy. Like they don't ask me for food. They tell me what they're ordering. And I just look at them and I say, are you telling me or are you asking me? Can you please try that again? So we're coaching them. These are boys from a really hard neighborhood that I don't think have a lot of positive attention at home. And so I keep reminding myself that, but we get them to order and they usually get a lemonade and something sweet like our dessert. And then they might try the main entree, even though vegan food is foreign to them. But then they sit and eat, and they do that in exchange for picking up litter on our sidewalk. That's how they give back. And that helps us because it makes the neighborhood look a little better. Actually, people from businesses on our whole block come through to eat every day. We have the barber shop. There's a new knife sharpener on the corner. The people from the tobacco and cell phone store, they come almost every week. And they have since we opened. And our most frequent customers are the ladies from the daycare right across the street. Like if we look out our door, we're seeing their door. 6 meals a day. One, they send over Portia or Laverne. One of them comes and gets 6 of everything, 6 lemonades every single day they were open for almost 7 years now. And they say all the time, oh, we don't know what we would do. Before you were here, we were eating at Wendy's. And Wendy's, we're so sick of whatever they're offering at Wendy's. So they're glad. And our menu's different every day. So they like the variety and the healthfulness. And they, when they really love the food, they come back and get another 3 or 4 later in the day. So they're big supporters. And we average serving maybe 40 or 60 people a day, which is great. And we're a small little business physically. And that translates to about 10,000 people a year that we're feeding, which is stunning. The continual feast, though, is possible in large part through the generosities of food donors like Dale, who says, do you need potatoes? Of course we need potatoes. Our door opens all day long with people rescuing food for us. I think the average person doesn't want to see food wasted, so they hear of us, they're like, oh, we'll bring it over there. So they have a pallet of tomatoes and maybe 2 of the tomatoes are moldy on them. Sure, we'll use all the good ones and throw the other ones out. We get dried goods from food pantries, the things nobody takes, lentils, split peas. We love that stuff. Once we got 5 giant bags of dried shiitake mushrooms. They're like the size of a bedroom pillow each. We're like, yes, please. So we get some very high-end things. And all of that comes to us before it would be wasted. We want to interrupt that stream of food waste before it is actually wasted. And sell-by dates, frankly, on plant-based foods are fairly arbitrary. People are like, well, we got to tell them it's done sometime, so they put a stamp on there. Food is fine. Our family eats long expired food at home, and we're okay. And produce gets thrown out whenever it has blemishes. So grocery stores, they always want to have the really pretty things out. If it has a bruise on it, they think it's done. No way. Especially if you're making soup or casserole, you're just chopping it up and cooking it down anyway. So we have volunteers who come and we spend hours just chopping all the produce, getting all the yuck off, and we compost that and we cook down what's good. And we even, we're almost a zero waste restaurant. So any food scraps that we generate from peeling potatoes, sweet potatoes, carrots, our onion peels, all of that, we boil it up and make soup stock every week, a few gallons of beautiful, nutrient-dense soup stock. And then we compost the scraps. We dehydrate our citrus rinds and we make powder so we can add it to drinks and desserts. We do all of that so that the only thing we're truly wasting goes to the compost pile. And then it becomes next year's garden anyway, so there is no waste. It's a beautiful cycle. And I've learned a lot about food rescuing over the years. David and I, when we were first married, because of our destitution, I'll say, we were both grad students and not really making any money, we became freegans. So we were vegans who ate what was free, so we weren't always vegans. But we would rescue food from big events that were happening at local universities. We'd go at the end with big tubs and fill up whatever was left on the table. To the point where the head of catering at the one school called me into his office and said, you can't come and take this food. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to sue you. I'm taking it and eating it. And he said, well, okay, just bring my dishes back. I'm like, okay. So I never took his dishes, to be fair. But we lived really well in those years, actually. We'd get like crab cakes and scones. And we got a little sick of eating the same thing after a few months, but that's okay. So grocery stores, though, in the U.S. are all covered under something called the Good Samaritan laws. I don't know if you've heard of this. Every single grocery store in this country can give away food that is expired if the goal is to make sure it gets to hungry people. Every single store can. Even if they're like, oh, I don't know if we can do that, they can. There's a national law that covers them because the intent is to feed people. So I keep wondering, in Door County, are there opportunities that maybe you all aren't even aware of? Have they not been asked? Is there an avenue to get this food where it needs to go before it reaches the trash? Well, think about it. Maybe something will come up for you. Maybe it's already happening, but they are covered. And I'll share the last part of our Trickleby tagline is Cozy Chapel. This is the one that really throws people. They can't always see it right away. Cozy Chapel. Sometimes people come in and they deeply look around the whole space and then they're like, where's the chapel? I'm like, you're in the chapel. It is the chapel. So a chapel is a place of prayer and worship that is relatively small. We have the small part down. But we acquired this storefront back in 2015. It was literally just a room, a little thinner than this one and about as long as this room. That was the main dining area and kitchen with a couple of bathrooms. And we spent a solid year gutting and renovating this really run-down storefront. And I kept telling the landlord at the time, it's going to be this really cute little cafe. He's like, okay, lady. Like, it was really bad. We had to kick the rats out and everything before we got in there. So we did it. A year later, we were open, and we've been thriving ever since. And 4 years after we acquired the space as renters, we got a grant to purchase the building. So this was in 2020. What a year to buy something. So we bought the whole building, 2 apartments upstairs, an apartment in the back. We bumped out a wall, renovated, doubled our dining capacity. We added an office space, a storage room, a laundry room, all these things we never had. And the apartments we renovated and rent out at an affordable price. So we did all of that. We bought the side lawn next door. We have a stage and some gardens there. We use the lawn regularly in the summer for markets and music. It really is a sacred place. And if you're doubting if there's a chapel there, you just have to come and go in that door and you'll realize, I've been here before, because it is sacred ground. And if you've been on sacred ground, you'll recognize it when you're there. It's a place where the warm greetings and the laughter and the physical nourishment are what become the prayers. It's a place where the large community tables where people gather and eat become the altars. It's a place where the act of meeting one another's needs reciprocally becomes the worship. And I hope you will come and join us there someday. Thank you.
Very inspirational. Thank you very much. So if you could stand in body or spirit for hymn number 209, O come, you your longing, thirsty soul. Spend yourself on empty air, might not be satisfied. For everywhere the feast is spread, as always at our side. For as the rain and snow be above, all down in vanity. But voice purpose water to feed humanity. So shall the bird of spirit serve and seed within our home. That we may bear so rich a yield as brings the harvest home. For we shall go in peace secure and live in joy sublime. The hills outside will burst with song, the trees will clap in time. No more shall thorns and nettles grow, the bay tree and the pine shall find for us the So do please join us in the gathering room for refreshments. And then after about 15 minutes, the chimes will ring. And then we can gather here and hear more about the Trickle Bee Cafe. So the closing words are from Norman Naylor. Our eyes and mind turn toward the ordinary. Leaving the space made sacred by our presence, take with you some seed of understanding, hope, and courage, and drop it into the confusion of the world. Nourish the seed that it might grow as a tree of life, giving shelter to the weary and hope to the despairing. Be yourself a branch of the tree of life.